Good morning, everyone. So today we're going to be working largely on breath. We're going to go through full joint mobility, but focus is going to be on breath and really kind of looking at 3 layers of breath. We're going to start with our crocodile breath, working through breathing out through the abdominal wall. Then we're going to do some work on bringing our breath up into the upper chest, upper back area. And we'll finish with some turtle breath, getting that breath down into the pelvic floor region. So we're working kind of 3 layers of our breathing mechanics. Can we get breath? Can we get expansion through the abdominal wall, ribs, upper chest, and down into the pelvic floor? Anytime we're working with breath, like generally with a crocodile breath, I feel pretty good about just kind of cueing it in, but getting into breathing into the chest, I want to be cautious for anxiety. If you tend to be high in anxiety, doing deep breathing into the chest can trigger that anxiety. So I want to stay, if anxiety is at all something that you feel stressed with when it comes to breathing into the chest region, I want to have a little bit of extra caution. Just pay attention to it. I don't want to be forceful with the breath. I want to be very soft with it. And if you do feel that you're getting triggered into a state of anxiety, to back off, focus more on rest and restore. So with all that, let's get started. We're going to start on our back with crocodile breath, making our nice big C shapes with our hands. Thumbs are going to go into the low back. I want to be able to press lightly into the low back musculature. Index fingers are going onto the front, feeling into the front wall of the abdominals, feeling a little bit into the belly. And the palms are pressing into the side body. So I want to kind of clench the hands down in order to create a little bit of resistance for our breath. And on our inhale breath, we're going to inhale and expand out and away on the hands. So I want to feel that pressure pushing out on the thumbs in the low back, pushing into the index fingers on the front and out sideways through the side body. I want to think like a balloon on that inhale. Can we feel an even expansion in all directions on our inhale? So we're going to inhale in through the nose and out through the mouth. And as we exhale, I want to draw the navel up and in like you're trying to touch your belly button towards your spine and even press your spine into the floor. And as we exhale, we're going to clench our hands just a little bit so that we have that nice resistance for the inhale. We're going to do about 5 to 6 nice deep breaths. With each breath, I want to see if we can progressively expand the balloon a little bit bigger and kind of feel for, is there a stretch associated with that inhale breath as that abdominal wall expands out? And where do you feel it? Do you feel it more on the right side? Do you feel it more on the left side? Is it more in the low back? Or do you feel it more in the front or even in the sides? So again, nice deep inhale to exhale, smooth breath. I don't want to be overly forceful, but I do want to see if we can blow that balloon up a little bit more. As you're getting a few more last 2-3 breaths, as you exhale, notice whether on your inhale, if you're kind of shrugging up the shoulders, on that exhale, allow the shoulders and the neck and the head to soften down into the floor. We'll allow our hands to kind of soften down. And we're very slowly going to sit up, coming up into a seated position, making sure that we're not dizzy or lightheaded. If we're not dizzy, lightheaded, we're going to then slowly get up Coming up to standing. Again, I want to make sure that there's no dizziness, lightheaded after doing our breath work. Once we come to standing, we're going to do some bowls of soup, but I want to do bowls of soup with the arms straight down at the side first. So palms are going to be facing forward, spreading hands as wide as you can, and reaching the fingertips. I want to really extend. Feel your shoulder blades draw down like you're trying to touch the floor with your fingertips. And we're going to work on spirals. We're going to do both arms at the same time to start with. So we're going to internally spiral those hands. As we spiral, that's going to start to draw the shoulder blades forward. I want to really allow those shoulder blades to roll forward as much as possible so that we start to feel some stretch across the upper back. And then we're going to spiral the arms, the palms open, facing forward and beyond, seeing how much can you spiral and start to feel that opening up of the chest. We're going to exhale as we internally spiral, and inhale as we externally spiral. Spiraling away, opening up the palms towards the ceiling is external. Inhale, spiraling the palms down towards the floor is our exhale, and that's internal spiral. And I want to start to focus on feeling our shoulder blade, feeling the scapula. As we internally spiral, feel the shoulder blades rolling forward as much as possible, and see if you can feel that stretch in the upper back between the shoulder blades and the spine. And then as we externally spiral, I want to feel the shoulder blades move back and down our back, like we're trying to set them into our back hip pockets. And as we're spiraling, can you feel that nice stretch opening up across the front of the chest? So I want to go from chest, stretch across the chest with our external spiral, to stretch across the upper back with our internal spiral. And now I want to kind of add in a full breath cycle at the end of each side. So as we internally spiral, getting that nice big stretch across our upper back, I want to hold that position, and we're going to do an inhale. And I very specifically want to bring that inhale breath into the upper back region. Can you breathe in between your shoulder blades? Can you feel that? Focus the inhale into that space between the shoulder blades. And exhale, we'll continue to internally spiral. So I'm not changing my position. We'll take 2 or 3 breaths here to see if we can sink this in. So inhale, we're feeling that breath move into the upper back between the shoulder blades. On the exhale, we're going to internally rotate the hands a little bit more in order to feel that stretch in that very same place. So the inhale is kind of expanding the balloon out for a stretch. And then when we exhale, we're losing that expansion, but we're cinching down by internally spiraling just a little bit more. And then we're going to bring our hands all the way back out into our external spiral, opening up the chest. And we're going to do the same thing, but now we're going to breathe forward into the chest space. So nice inhale. See if you can breathe specifically into the upper chest as you're externally spiraling those arms. And then exhale. Allow the shoulders to kind of, the arms to soften down towards the floor, but maintain that external spiral. So in this one, the inhale is going to create that stretch across the chest more. And then as we exhale, we're going to continue to externally spiral the hands so that we maintain that stretch on the exhale. Inhale, stretch. Inhale is expanding up, so we feel an expansion stretch. Exhale, we're feeling a rotational stretch of spiraling those arms, which continues to open up the chest. After 3 or so breaths, I want to come back to our internal spiral. Exhale. Inhale as we externally spiral. And we'll do 3 to 5 back and forth. Hopefully, after doing those inhale and exhale on each side, you're feeling a little bit more ease and range of motion as you move back and forth with your breath. And then we're going to bring this all the way back down to the floor, getting into an inverted position. Inverted sit, bringing palms right around the hips. I want to ground through the palms, and we're going to do the exact same movement that we did standing, except now we're loaded through our palms. So I want to be actively pressing down into the floor, trying to maintain a nice tall spine, as tall as we can. And we're going to do the exact same spirals through the arms, except our hands are staying fixed and grounded. And so the action is going to be similar to at our shoulders. So as we internally spiral the elbows, shoulders are going to roll forward up to our ears. Again, feeling that stretch across the upper back. And then as we externally spiral, feel that chest opening up towards the ceiling. Nice big stretch across the top of the chest as we open up. Nice big stretch across the upper back as we spiral in. And we're exhaling as we internally spiral, getting nice and rounded in that upper back. And then we're inhaling as we open up that chest. We're going to go back and forth about 5 up to 10 times here. See how much more can you open up and lift through the front of the chest as we externally spiral. On our inhale, how much can you exhale, spiraling forward, and feel that stretch across the upper back. After 5 to 10 reps, we're going to hold the position, and I want to do 3 to 5 breaths in each position. So we'll start internal spiral. Shoulders are rounded forward. Feeling that nice stretch across the upper back. Does not need to be a massive stretch, but I just want to kind of feel that open upper back. And then we're going to very specifically, just like we did when our standing position, I want to breathe into this upper back space, trying to get fixed between the shoulder blades. Can you inhale into that space between the shoulder blades? And then on the exhale, we're going to continue to spiral internally. See if we get a little bit more stretch by rounding the shoulders more. And then inhale, stretching into that space. So I want to see if we can feel a stretch associated with both the inhale and the exhale. But they're different stretches. One stretch is your breath expanding into that space. And then the exhale is adding a little bit of spiral through the arms to internally rotate more. And does that continue to get that stretch in that same space? Then we're going to externally spiral, opening up the chest, lifting the sternum tall. And we're going to do the same thing, breathing into the front of the chest. Nice inhale. Can you feel the inhale expand the chest open? And as we exhale, we're going to externally spiral the elbows more. Can you feel the shoulder blades move down your rib back a little bit more towards your back pockets? Inhale, lifts. Exhale, spirals more. In each of these spirals, we're not moving very far. We're just adding a little bit more tension into it. I want to make sure that we're not moving into like stress or pain. And after 3 to 5, I want to come back to one breath per move. So we're exhaling as we spiral internally, filling up that upper back or stretching that upper back. Inhaling as we open up and lift through the chest. And seeing if this feels, have we gotten a little bit more access to space? Can we get a little bit more open through our chest in the front? Can we get a little bit more rounded in our upper back? On the next exhale, as you inhale, I want to externally spiral, and I want to maintain that external spiral. And we're going to do a little bit of neck mobility now. So I want to stay grounded through the palms. We're externally spiraled so that we have this nice big open chest, and we're going to maintain that throughout the rest of the neck mobility. And we're going to start by checking our blind spots. And I want to go very, very slow, and I want to keep the breath, our movement synced with our breath. So we're going to exhale as we slowly turn and look over the right shoulder. Inhale as we come back to the center, and then exhale as we slowly look over our left shoulder. And with the neck mobility, I always want to start small with our range of motion. I don't want to go to the furthest reach possible right off the bat. Start small, and each rep, move into it a little bit further, going slow, soft, safe, non-forcefully. We'll do 5 up to 10 reps per side. And with each one, we're squeezing into that look over our shoulders just a little bit further. And noticing if it's a little tighter on the left side compared to the right side. Do you go a little bit further in one direction than the other direction? Does it feel tighter and more restricted in one direction versus the other direction? My left side is a little tighter than my right today. We'll come back to center, and now we're going to do our tilt and lift. So a light tilt of the head, like you're dropping your ear towards your shoulder, but I don't want to drop it all the way down. This is a very light drop. Then opposite ear, we're imagining we're trying to lift that ear and touch the ceiling with it. Exhale as you lift. Inhale as you let your head come back to center. Exhale as you tilt to the other side and lift. And again, start small, and with each one, we're going to see if we can lift a little bit higher. And we can also add in a little bit of a press through the palm. So when you're lifting your right ear up, you can press down through the right palm in order to create a little bit more traction in the side of that neck. See if you can feel that stretch kind of in this, front to the side of the neck on each side. How does it feel on the right side compared to the left side? Again, I want to make sure we are connected to our breath. We are exhaling as we lift, inhaling as we come back to the center, and then exhaling as we lift to the other side. And then on the next one, we're going to lift, and we're going to keep it here, and I want to do 3 to 5 breaths, and we're bringing that breath up into this neck region. So I kind of want to specifically breathe up, like we're trying to fill up this space where that stretch is. On the exhale, we're softly reaching that ear up to the ceiling. Inhale, seeing if we can fill up that space. Exhale, reach. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Lift. Keep that lift as we inhale, filling in that space. Notice, is it more difficult to fill in that space on one side than it is on the other? Exhale, lift a little bit higher. Inhale, see if you can fill in that space. And then we're going to do a little side to side with it again. Exhale as you lift. Inhale back to center. Exhale as you lift. Good. We're going to relax our shoulders a little bit. We're going to change our position and we're going to come into our quadruped, getting into hands and knees, spreading fingers out nice and wide, grounding the palms. Elbows are extended fully without locking. And we're going to go ahead and tuck our back toes. And we're going to come back to our crocodile breath, breathing into that abdominal wall in all directions. Breathing into the belly, out through the side, and into the low back. And we'll get a good 3 to 5 breaths. And with each breath, again, I want to see if each breath we can make that abdominal wall a little bit bigger, like a balloon. Nice big inhale. As you exhale, draw the navel into the spine. Inhale, fill up that wall in all directions, blowing it up like a balloon. Exhale, navel comes into the spine. And notice how as you draw that navel into the spine, it's going to naturally start to create a scoop of our pelvis. And then we're going to start to accentuate that scoop by moving into doing some pelvic tilts. So on our inhale, allow the pelvis to tilt forward down towards the floor. This is going to give us a little bit of sway in the back. It's also going to make it a little bit more difficult to breathe into that low back. We're still trying to fill up that low back balloon, but it's not going to fill up quite as much because we're closing that space with our pelvis. On the exhale, drawing navel into spine and scooping the pelvis. See if you can get some light mobility stretch into that low back, making sure that we're not moving into pain. I'm not letting this movement come up into my upper back. I'm keeping it in the pelvis for right now. Just pelvic tilts so that we get a little bit of mobilization into the low back. After about 5 up to 10 breaths, now we can start to let that movement go further up the spine. So as we exhale and scoop, I want to continue to scoop and feel that movement start to move up the spine as we get more into our cat position. As it moves up to the shoulders, we're going to press through the floor, getting nice and big and spread across the upper back. And then it'll go across the head, and we can try to touch our tailbone and our forehead at this imaginary space right in the middle. And then as we inhale, inhale draws that pelvis down, fills up the belly, and it's going to move up the spine slowly. As it gets to the chest kind of reaches to the floor, and the head comes up last. Exhale, get nice and big through the lower back into the upper back. Feel that spread. Inhale. Nice, open up. Feel the chest drop and the head come up last. And I want to start to add in our spirals of the elbows again. So as we're in our more cow position, pelvis is tilted to the floor, belly is open to the floor, and we got a sway in the back. Elbow pits should be spiraling out or at least forward, and feeling how that the shoulder blades start to pack down and back. As we exhale, scooping the pelvis, we're going to spiral the elbow pits inward as we press through the floor. See if that gives you a little bit more stretch across the upper back. Inhale, draws the pelvis to the floor as we spiral the elbow pits forward, packing the shoulder, and the head comes up last. Exhale, nice big reach, nice big rounded upper back. Inhale, drops the chest to the floor, elbows spiral forward. We'll come off the hands a little bit, give the wrists a little bit of a break. And then I want to bring hands forward, getting into more of our child's pose position. Hips are directly over the knees if you can manage. If you tend to have shoulder discomfort or shoulder instability or low back pain, then the hips can sit back a little bit. But the more forward you're able to keep the hips over your knees, the more we can isolate your shoulders specifically. We're going to spread hands nice and wide, nice downward pressure into the floor. Elbows are active and straight. We're inhaling at the top, and we're going to exhale as we scoop our pelvis and reach the sternum down to the floor at the same time. Inhale is going to bring us up as we lift our chest up, filling up our belly, getting a little bit of that sway in the low back. Exhale, we're actively scooping the pelvis. We're actively scooping the tailbone as we draw the navel in. I want to feel that core engagement of that exhale scoop as we reach our sternum to the floor. Inhale up. Exhale with each one. See if you can drop a little deeper. Also see if you can bring your hands just a little bit more forward. Again, I want to make sure that we're not getting into a stressful position with the shoulders where they feel unstable or painful. But I want to isolate those shoulders a little bit to see how does that right shoulder feel compared to the left shoulder. On the next one, as we go down, I want to stay down. I don't want to stay down at a maximum tension where it's a stressful stretch, but in light tension. And from here, we're going to work on pushing forward through our hands on the floor. But since our hands are sticky and stuck to the floor, it's going to slide our hips back, and we're going to feel the shoulder blades slide up towards our ears. And then when we pull, we're going to pull those shoulder blades down our back as much as they can go. This is a scapular slide. Elbows stay active and straight. We're pulling from our hands, sliding the shoulder blades down the rib cage towards the back hips, and then we're pushing through the hands, feeling the shoulder blades slide up to the ears as our hips slide backwards. Can you feel the slide and glide of your shoulder blades on your rib cage? How does it feel on the right shoulder compared to the left shoulder? Then we'll come off the shoulders, again, give them a little bit of a break, roll them out, and we're going to change into our shin box position. So I'm in shin box, I'm on my left side, left palm is coming down to the ground. I want to spiral that elbow out and away, feel that shoulder blade pack down and back, and that chest is kind of nice and lifted tall. And we're going to focus on that back hip, allowing that hip to drop down towards the floor. And I want to come back in and kind of feel into our breath again. Nice inhale into our crocodile breath. Exhale, draw the navel into the spine. With each inhale, can you fill up that crocodile, that balloon of the abdominal wall a little bit more? We're not moving any other area of the body. That back hip is just set down, resting as close to the floor or on the floor as it can be. And do you feel any stretch associated with that inhale breath around the abdominal wall based on the position that we're in? After 5 breaths, we're going to switch and do the same thing on the other side. So again, nice grounded palm, spiral the elbow out and away, feel that shoulder blade pack down and back, nice lifted chest, and the back hip is sinking down towards the floor. Want to maintain grounded contact, open spiral through the shoulder at the same time that we're trying to let that hip soften down to the floor. If it touches the floor, great. If not, we're just seeing how close to the floor can we get it. And then we're bringing in our breath into that abdominal wall for 5 breaths. Nice inhale and expand. Exhale, draw that navel into the spine. And with each inhale, try to blow the balloon up a little bit bigger. And is there a stretch associated with that expansion of the wall in this position? And is it different on this side than it was on the other side? You may notice it's tighter on the right side or it's tighter on the left side, especially in the low back space. This is important. Part of the reason we're working on this as a breath practice is to get more expansion through our breathing apparatus so that we have more access to breath, which is going to give us more access to core stability. So breath is important, especially if you're feeling a difference between the right side and the left side of these positions that we're in. After 5 breaths, we're going to shift back to the other side shin box. Getting into the exact same position, grounded palm, spiraled elbow, packed shoulder, lifted sternum, back hip starts on the floor, or at least reaching to the floor. And now we're going to play with range of motion of this back hip. I want to see how close to the floor can we get, or if we can touch, how much can we feel it sit and rest to the floor. And then on our exhale, we're going to lift and scoop and see how high off the floor can we get that hip to move and how far forward as we scoop into it. Can we feel a stretch through the front of the thigh? Can we get full extension of the front of the thigh? Inhale, we're letting that hip all the way back. Exhale, scooping forward. I'm really looking at range of motion and quality of range of motion. Is it clunky? Is it painful? If it's painful, then I want to back off. Keep that pain below a level 3 on a scale of 0 to 10. Is it a little bit tight? And do you get a little bit more range with each one? After 5 breaths, we're going to come to the other side and do the same thing. And this is an important one to compare. Again, grounded palm, spiraled elbow, lifted sternum. Inhale, that hip's on the floor or as close to the floor as we can get it. Exhale, we're lifting, scooping, and reaching it forward at the same time. Can you feel a light stretch through the front of the hip? Not pain. Inhale, filling up that abdominal wall like a balloon. Exhale, drawing navel into the spine as you move that hip bone forward. We're looking at the difference in range of motion on the right side compared to the left side. Part of that is feeling. Does one side feel tighter and more restricted? But also it is paying attention and watching, looking. Does it go as far on the right side as it does on the left side? Is one side have more range of motion compared to the other side? I have a little bit less range of motion on my left hip than I do on my right. It doesn't go quite as close to the floor, and it does not go quite as far forward. So I've got some significant restrictions in this left side, which is incredibly relevant to how we move and how efficient we move. After 5 breaths, we're going to switch back across to the other side. We're doing the exact same thing again. So for 3 breaths, inhale, let it drop. Exhale, scooping into it. Oftentimes, the second time coming back to a movement after doing both sides, you'll get a little bit more ease and of range and a little bit more range overall. On the 3rd exhale, as you scoop into it, continue to actively scoop, and we're going to add a reach with rotation. So this is where we're imagining we got a piece of bread, and we're trying to share that breath with somebody who is directly through the arrow of our knee. Exhale as we reach and spiral. Inhale as we bring it all the way back, allowing that hip to come all the way to the floor. Exhale, scoop, get active in that scoop, and then add the reach. Don't let your reach take away from that scoop. Your reach should draw that stretch in the front of the hip up into the obliques and maybe into the low back area. And again, notice how tight and restricted it feels on this side. So after 5, we're going to switch back across to the other side, doing the same thing, and this is where we want to have that good comparison. Inhale for 3, exhale for 3 first, going back and forth, just moving the hip before we add the rotation. Again, I want to see if just by coming back to this first movement, do we get a little bit more range? Can we get a little bit more scoop to the front? Can we drop the hip a little bit closer to the floor? I got a little bit more mobility in my hip just coming back to it a second time. On the third one, as we scoop actively into it, now we're adding our reach with rotation. And if you're noticing one hip is tighter than the other, you're probably going to notice right off the bat when you add rotation that the rotation is tighter on one side as well. Much more tighter through the front of my hip and into my rotation with this left side. The left hip is tight, and then it stays tight as I go into rotation. This is important because we get to see how tightness in the hip becomes immobility in our back, because this is hip extension is restricting my rotation through my lumbar, even up into my thoracic spine. That's going to be a big deal. So immobility in one joint creates immobility in other joints as well. We're going to come back to the other side, and then we're now going to change our position slightly by bringing that hand off the floor, and we're going to bring it all the way up. I want to bring elbow high, forearm's going to come across the top of the head. And I want to specifically try to breathe into this side body space of the elevated arm. And again, we're thinking like a crocodile, but because of the position, because I got this arm up, my opposite side, I'm kind of closed. So I'm not going to be able to breathe as well into that crocodile breath on this side. So I want to focus it on the side that is open, elevated elbow. You can use your offhand to just lightly touch to give yourself a sensation of where you want that breath to go into, if you can reach, if you can touch that area. But this is where we're trying to get that breath into, is that side body space, not just the front belly, out through the side and into that low back. Inhale, see if you can feel some stretch, expansion of the inhale. Exhale, draw the navel to the spine, and we're going to start to lightly lift that elbow up to the ceiling. Inhale, we're expanding out, feeling that stretch of expansion. Exhale, drawing navel in and getting long by reaching elbow up to the ceiling. Can you feel a stretch associated with reach on your exhale? Can you feel a stretch associated with inhale and expansion of that abdominal wall? So I want to feel a little bit of a stretch in both phases of the breath, but one is related to the inhale and the other is related to the reach on that exhale. It's not the exhale that gives you the stretch, it's the reach with the exhale. We'll bring that arm down. We're going to shift across and do the same thing on the other side. So again, bringing arm up, starting out with just breath, seeing if we can bring that breath into that side body space. And notice right off the bat, does it feel the same? This side for my shin box is the tighter side in this position, especially in this low back area. And again, it's related to this left hip. So again, I want to kind of start to gather information as far as how one area of tightness in my body is really like a whole pattern of tightness. It's not just one joint, it's a series of joints. And that becomes pretty relevant when we think about how we walk and how we run and how we move. So as we're filling up that side body space on our inhale, on the exhale, starting to add that lift and reach through the elbow. Inhale continues to move out like a balloon. Exhale moves long as we reach up. Can you feel the expansion, stretch of your inhale moving out? Can you feel that stretch associated with moving long on your exhale? After 5 breaths, we're going to move that back to the other side. And I want to go ahead and do another round of this, but this round will just keep to 3 breaths. Bringing that arm up, inhale out into that balloon, exhale long. Does it feel a little more mobile? Do you feel like you got a little bit more access to that breath going through it the second time? After 3 breaths, we'll go back to the other side to do 3 more. And again, notice if it feels a little easier to get into the second time around. Feel that expansion of the inhale out. Feel that stretch getting long on the exhale. Good. So now we're going to switch back to the other side. And now we're going to get into our folds. So on our folds, I'm going to reach through the shin. Both hands are coming even together. So we're going to exhale as we reach. I want to make sure that one hand is not reaching farther than the other. And I don't want to overreach at first. I want to stay short, shallow, and then with each reach we can move into it a little bit farther as long as it's not painful and we're not moving into stress or strain. So nice exhale, drawing navel in as we reach. Inhale, we're bringing it all the way back up. Exhale, seeing if we can reach a little bit further. Can we get our chest closer to the floor? Can we reach our hands a little bit more forward? And where do you feel this? Do you feel this in the back hip of the leg that's in front? Do you feel it in the front hip of the leg that is in the back? Do you feel some stretch into your low back as you reach? And we're going to do 5 breaths, and on the 5th breath, we're going to stay in our reach. I got one more to get there. So nice inhale, filling up big into our balloon. Exhale as we reach. I want to reach into light tension, and now we're going to stay in this light tension. And we're going to do 3 to 5 breaths in this position. And on that breath, I want to very intentionally breathe into your low back space. So I want to breathe into this area of our low back. And by breathing into that area, it should kind of draw your arms back up a little bit. It's going to pull us up off the floor as we inhale and inflate. As we exhale, we're going to reach a little bit further. Inhale into that low back space. Exhale, reach a little further. One more big breath in, and then out, reach. On the next inhale, we're going to come all the way up and switch to the other side. And we're going to do the same thing, 5 breaths, slowly reaching a little bit further as we exhale. Inhale, we're filling up that our abdominal wall. Exhale, reaching a little bit further. Seeing if we can drop the chest a little farther. Can we reach our fingers a little bit further? And noticing, where do we feel the stretch? Again, do we feel it in the back hip of the leg that's in front? Do you feel it in the front hip of the leg that's in back? Or do you feel it in your low back space? On the 5th breath, as you exhale, we're going to exhale and we're going to stay low, not in full tension, but in light tension. And this is where we're going to bring our breath specifically into that low back space. Inhale again, should slightly draw the hands back. Exhale, lightly reaching a little further. Can you feel a stretch in that low back space associated with the inhale breath, trying to fill up that space? Exhale. Can you drop into it a little bit further without forcing it? After 5 breaths, now we're going to start to work side to side with our folds. So I want to go all the way across one side. Nice big exhale as we reach. Inhale as we bring it all the way up. We'll do one full breath cycle as we transition across to the other side. And then exhale as we reach. Inhale as we come back up and shift to the other side. Now, as we're going side to side, I really want to keep that recognition of comparing the left to the right. How does it feel? One side as we go into the folds in comparison to the other side. Does one side feel tighter and more restricted? And if so, where? If you could put a finger on it, where would that finger be? This would be a good thing to kind of take a note of. A lot of these areas that we find tension and tightness that are different on one side compared to the other can be very useful to keep notes on, especially when you come in for a session with me, because it gives me a lot of information about where your body is holding tension, where compensation patterns might be, and what we want to work on in order to change those patterns. As we're going back and forth, nice and slowly, I want to start to open up our shin box, sliding that back leg open a little bit more. At this point, I'm less concerned about staying square with my shin, and I just want to kind of explore a nice fold. So I'm going to give you a little bit of variable options here. So as I get forward, I can reach straight through the knee. I can reach straight forward through my hips, or I can even reach kind of back. As long as we're not moving into a pain pattern, we have a little bit of room for exploration. And I want to explore both sides. By exploring, it gives us a little bit more feedback on where some areas of tension that we may not be aware that tension exists there. Again, going back and forth, doing the same thing, same hip position on each side as we get into our fold. Slide that back leg back. With each one, we can start to slide that leg a little bit more open so that we get closer and closer to what we would consider a yoga class pigeon pose. I'm not getting specifically into that pose. If you're able to get into the pose, great. I really only want to do it 1 or 2 times. I'm more interested in all the range of motion leading up to that pose, because I find a lot of people focus on just getting into that pose and they miss out on all the variable exploration that is a lot more important than just one particular pattern. Especially being able to notice the difference side to side. We'll do one or two more on each side. This is where we get to be as open as we possibly can without going into pain. Can you get as the same level of open on both sides? That should be the goal. Be as balanced as possible. I don't want to go into a perfect pigeon pose on one side if you cannot do it on the other side. Whichever side is more limited, let that be how far you go on the side that is not limited. Good. All right, so now we are going to lay on our back. We're going to go ahead and pull out our chair. If we have a chair, it can be a bolster. You can use a couch. All we're going to do is let something that we can rest our feet. You can also use a wall for this. And this is getting into our turtle breath. So I want my hips to be less than 90 degrees. So the knees need to be pulled in towards the chest. I don't want the knees to be so far away that the hip space is greater than 90 degrees. So pull the knees in a little bit. You're going to keep your feet touching together. So the heel and the ball of the foot should touch, but the knees are going to be spread. I want knees to be about shoulder width apart. Feet are going to be touching together. So we're getting a little bit into a frog position. From here, we're going to start with our thumb, our C shapes on our abdominal wall. And I'm going to come back and first cue in our crocodile breath. So nice inhale, fill up that space of that abdominal wall. Exhale, navel to spine. Let your hands cinch in so that you have that resistance, so that you're expanding that balloon out and away in all directions. We'll do 3 breaths with just crocodile breath. On the third one, we'll let release our hands, and we're going to bring our hands to our knees. We're going to do the same breath through the abdominal wall, but now we're adding press through our hands, and we're going to push into our knees. And I want to push and extend the elbows, but at the same time, I want to pull in with the knees. So I don't want to open up my hip space to more than 90 degrees. I got to maintain tension by pulling knees in as I'm pushing out. This is going to create a little bit more abdominal tension. One thing on this, I want to make sure that the head is on the floor, shoulders are on the floor. If you find that head and shoulders will not stay down, then I would put a bolster, a pillow, something underneath you so that your head and your shoulders can soften down and you're not holding them up in gravity. You want to be able to relax upper body completely, other than we're pressing through our palms. Chest should be open. Upper back is spread across the floor as much as possible. Knees are wide. We're pushing out and away while we're pulling in. We're coming back and doing our crocodile breath from this position while we're maintaining this tension in our knees and our hands. Inhale, fill up that crocodile breath. Exhale, draw navel into spine. And on your next breath, everything else is going to be the same with the crocodile breath, but we're going to move that breath and send the energy of that inhale down into the bowl of our pelvic floor. I want to see if we can feel that inhale stretch into the pelvic floor as we inhale. As we exhale, we're going to do a light Kegel, basically like you're holding off your pee or holding off poo. You're just squeezing lightly as you exhale. When you inhale, release that Kegel and allow that breath to come down into that pelvic floor. Exhale, draw navel in as you squeeze. Inhale, open up that belly, open up the pelvic floor. Try to maintain soft low back. I want to watch out for the low back lifting up off the floor. See if you can feel the low back flat across the floor, shoulders flat across the floor, maintaining this tension through the abdominal core. After 5 to 6 breaths, we're going to relax our arms. We can slowly bring our feet down to the floor. We're going to remain on our back, but we can move our chair out of the way. And we're going to do some crocodile breath. We just did that. We're going to do some baby rolls from this position. So legs are going to go nice and flat. Arms are coming up into a Y shape. I want to make sure that elbows are soft on the floor, so bring them out as wide as they need to so that elbows are placed down. And we're going to press evenly through both heels on the floor. I want to have a light pressure through the heels. And we're going to do an inhale, filling up our crocodile breath. On the exhale, I'm lifting up my head, using my eyes to reach, and reaching across the body, kind of at that same Y shape. So my opposite hand is reaching at the same angle as my lower hand. As I reach, inhale, I'm coming all the way back. Exhale, I'm lifting my head, reaching with my eyes as my hand comes across. And again, I'm trying to stay at that same angle. As I reach with my hands, I want my heel pressure to be even. I don't want to press harder through one heel than I am with the other heel. Light pressure to keep the heels in contact with the floor. Inhale as we come to center. Exhale as we reach. Again, start small with the reach and then slowly move to longer and longer as long as it is not painful. We'll do 5 up to 10 on each side. Then we'll come back to the floor, back to our starting position. And now we're going to do a similar movement, reaching through our legs. Arms are still in this Y. We're now going to lift one foot. As we exhale, we're reaching across. And I want to keep that foot elevated a little bit as if I'm trying to set it up onto a shelf. The shoulder is allowed to come up off the floor on this, but I want to remain with some contact of the back of the hand. Inhale as we bring that leg down. Exhale as we lift the other leg and reach across. So again, I'm reaching up high. As I reach, my shoulder blade is coming up off the floor, but my hand is remaining in contact with the floor. And as, again, we're starting small and slow, not reaching far, but with each one, we're seeing if we can reach and extend those toes a little further, making sure that we're not going into pain. And as we're reaching those toes a little further, we can also reach back, let the hand that's on the floor still, let those fingers slide away like you're trying to reach those fingers away from the toes. How long can you get from fingertip to toe tip? And how does it feel on the left side compared to the right side? And where do you feel it? Do you feel greater tension in one direction? And if you do, where is that tension? Is it in the shoulders? Is it in the low back? Is it in the hips? Or is it somewhere else? Is it more on the right side? Is it more on the left side? Good. Now we're going to go ahead and flip over onto our belly. Arms now are going to come in tight as they can to our head. This one, I want my elbows pulled all the way into the ears. And I want to keep those elbows tight to the ears. We're going to do lifting up through that arm and shoulder. We're looking up through the corners of our eyes. As I lift, I don't want my arm to come away from my body. This is a whole lot of shoulder mobility, not a lot of spinal mobility. So I'm keeping that arm straight and I want it pinned to my ear. We're going to look up through the corners of the eyes, so the head has to turn, and we're reaching with our eyes as we lift that elbow up. That's going to start to take us into a roll. As we roll, that outside knee can start to slide up as long as it stays in contact with the floor, which should open you up to get a little further. Inhale, we're bringing it all the way back, letting that knee slide back down, and then the same thing to the other side. Exhale as you lift, looking up into the corners of your eyes. Roll, keeping that knee in contact. How far can you go? Inhale, bringing it all the way back. Again, with this, notice how does it feel on the right side compared to the left side. Are you able to go farther in one direction? Or do you feel more tension in one side than the other? You might feel tension in the shoulder, especially the back of the shoulder. You might feel it in the low back. You could feel it in the hip. Is it different on the right than it is on the left? Good. We'll come back to center. Now we're going to bring our arms straight out to the side with the palms down. We're going to get into our scorpion. Scorpion, we're bending one knee. I want to pull the foot, the toes down like you're trying to touch your shin with your with the top of your foot. So we're keeping that active foot position. From here, we're going to lift our heel like we're trying to touch the ceiling with the heel. And I want to stay light with this to start with. How high can you lift that heel? And as I lift that heel, I want to keep my opposite hip on the floor. I don't want the front of this hip to start lifting up off the floor. That means I'm driving down through this knee. If there's a little bit of pressure through the knee, that's fine, but I don't want it to move, to change the orientation of my hip on the floor. So we're exhaling as we lift. Inhale as you let that knee back down, switch to the other side. Active foot pulls towards the shin, lifting the heel like you're trying to touch the ceiling with the heel without lifting that opposite hip. Inhale, back down, exhale, switch to the other side. This is a nice assessment for hip mobility, as well as a little bit of like, do we have good function of our glutes? Does one side lift higher than the other? Is one side harder to lift than the other? That's going to be a big assessment point. And if you find that this is a difficult position difficult movement to do on one side, as long as it's not painful, then I would say this is probably a movement that we want to incorporate a little bit more until we get some better proficiency on both sides. If you can do this movement without pain, without discomfort, and it's pretty even on both sides, then we can bring in a little bit of rotation. So as I lift that heel up towards the ceiling, I can then reach that heel like I'm trying to touch my opposite shoulder, and that's going to rotate the hip. I only want to go as far as I can without my front shoulder lifting up off the floor. So I want to keep that shoulder lightly touching. Inhale, bringing it down. Exhale, going to the other side. Lift first, and then add in that light rotation. Go slow and easy on this. Start incredibly small. It's a small rotation to start with. I want to make sure it's not painful on the low back. I want to notice where is it tighter on one side compared to the other side. Good. All right. So from here, we're going to very slowly come back up to a seated position. Again, we've been doing a lot of breath work, so I want to make sure you're not lightheaded, there's no dizziness. We're going to slowly come up to a standing position. And we can grab a staff at this point. So since we did a lot of spinal mobility, a lot of work on gait and a lot of work on breath, I want to do a little bit of work down at our feet, just to make sure that we got some good foot mobility, so that we can make sure we're pretty well balanced through the feet. So we're going to do our 6 walks series. So the staff is here just as extra support, help for balance. If you don't need the staff, that's fine. We're going to start with right leg stepping out and away, and I'm just loading onto the ball of the big toe. Outside ball of the foot is off the floor, heel is off the floor. And so when we're going to shift our weight from outside leg onto that foot. As we do so, the knee is going to slightly internally track, and I want to feel that load into the arch of the foot. It's like we're loading the arch spring, and then we're going to unload the arch spring. So I want to feel the weight of our shift absorb into that arch. It might feel like a stretch. It might feel a little stiff in there. Stiff would be a good sign that you're loading the spring. And then I want to feel that spring unload. If you feel solid and you don't have balance issues, this can be a load and then a release from the floor. You can feel it pop off the floor. Spring's going to pop, right? You load it, compress a spring and let it go, it's going to pop a little bit. So we can get into that if you feel strong in your dynamic action here. If this feels unsafe, then I want to keep it as a simple weight shift. We're doing 5, you can do up to 10 reps. Once we get those 5, we're going to do the same thing, but now I'm allowing that compression of the spring even more so that the heel touches, and then the heel's going to lift, and then the toe's going to spring. So now we're taking it all the way down from ball of the big toe to the heel. I'm still keeping the outside edge of the foot off the floor. Pinky side ball of the foot is not touching. Can you feel that? Is there a stretch associated with that medial arch of the foot? Can you feel that load and then release? Again, after 5 to 10 reps, we're going to keep that foot in the same position, but now we're lifting the ball of the foot and we're only loading on the heel. So again, shift as if you're stepping onto that heel and then pressing off. I still want to feel a little spring-like. The knee is still lightly tracking internally and then pushing off that heel. Again, if you feel dynamic and you can pop off, then great. If not, all we're doing is shifting weight to back leg, shifting weight onto front leg, and then back and forth. I want to stay within what feels safe. I also want to make sure that this is not painful on the knee. If you have some meniscal compression or damage or irritation, loading into that inside heel can be a little bit uncomfortable on the knee. So I want to make sure that we're paying attention to that as well. Once we do our 5 to 10, we're going to switch to the other side. So left foot out and away, loading onto the ball of the foot, not outside ball or heel. Knee is tracking in. We're loading into that arch lightly and then unload. Again, it can be a weight shift to start with. And if that feels safe and dynamic, we can start to bring it into where we're kind of popping that foot off the floor. Load the spring, unload the spring. Again, knee is slightly tracking internally. I'm accentuating my internal load. I want to make sure you're not going to a point of pain on the inside of that knee. After 5 to 10, we're doing the same thing, but we're letting the heel come all the way down to load the ground and then unload the heel first and then release the ball of the foot. So heel comes to touch, then the heel comes up, and then we're popping off the big toe. And again, starts as a weight shift until you feel solid enough to make it more dynamic so that it's more pop, right? Notice if this is the stiffness of that spring is greater on the left foot compared to the right foot. That's going to be a really, really big deal. That's going to be an indication that you're probably got stuck in a little bit of supination on one side compared to the other. Now we're going to our heel. Again, planting on the heel. Ball of the foot does not touch. Knee still tracks lightly internal. And again, this can be weight shift, or it can be popping off, depending on what feels safe. I don't want to move into unsafe movements or positions. After 5 to 10, we're going to switch back to the right foot. Now our foot placement is going to be straight out in front, and we're loading onto the outside ball of the foot. So the big toe side is now completely off the floor, and the heel is still completely off the floor. We're just loading onto the outside foot. The knee is going to track out a little bit now, but we're doing the same concept. I want to feel that load of the spring, unload of the spring. Can you feel that load more to the outside arch of the foot? It may not feel as stiff as that medial arch. That medial arch is our primary stiff arch. But there is some stiffness in this outside arch as well. So we should be able to feel a little bit of that spring getting loaded, spring getting unloaded. Feel it load and unload. After 5 to 10 reps, we're going to let our foot come all the way flat to the floor. We're still keeping it in front, and we're going to let it turn so that we're on the outside edge of the foot. And however far you're able to turn is going to be based on what feels stable in your ankle. I don't want you to get into an unstable position, so start lightly on this. And again, we'll start with just a simple weight shift. Knees tracking out. We're only putting as much weight as we feel safe, and then we're shifting it off. If that ankle feels pretty solid, we can turn this into that spring popping off effect. Load the spring, knee tracks out, unload the spring. But I don't want to go dynamic on an unstable ankle. If your ankle doesn't feel safe, stay at the progression that is most suited for it. I don't want to roll an ankle doing a silly drill, right? That doesn't make sense. I want to make sure that we are building ankle stability and not taking it away. Next, we're going to go now shift to the outside heel. Knee is still tracking out. We're still stepping kind of right in front, but that knee is slightly going to track out. And again, load and unload. And it could be a simple weight shift forward and backwards, or we can start popping off the floor lightly. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Again, starting on the outside ball of the foot, knee tracks out, load, then unload. Again, this is a great place to kind of notice the difference of the left foot compared to the right foot. Does one side feel different than the other side? My right foot, or my left foot, sorry, is a little bit more state of supination compared to my right foot. My right foot tends to be in pronation. My left foot tends to be stuck in supination. So when I was loading on the inside ball of this foot, it felt stiffer, a lot more stretch associated with it. When I load on the outside ball, it feels weaker and less stable compared to the right side. We're going to let the foot now go flat. And we're going to roll it all the way out to the full blade, outside blade of the foot. Again, only going as far as we feel safe. Knee is tracking out. Light load, shift back. How does that feel? If you feel safe with it, if that ankle feels stable, we can start making it a little bit more dynamic. Load and unload, feeling that kind of popping off effect. And after 5 to 10 reps, then we're going to come to the outside edge of the heel. Foot is still kind of straight out in front, knee still tracks slightly out. Load that heel. This is kind of like our normal gait mechanics. The way we would take a step is right through here. So this should be the safest of the positions we're doing. It's just going to feel funky that we're landing on the heel and not going through the rest of our stride. And after 5 to 10 reps, we can set our staff down. Since we're in a standing position, I'm going to stay here, get our feet balanced together, and I want to make our big C shapes with our hands again, thumbs in the rear, index fingers in the front, and we're going to get 5 to 6 nice breaths working back into that crocodile breath. Can you feel that expansion of the abdominal wall? On the inhale, exhale, can you feel your navel draw into the spine? And you'll probably notice that in a standing position, it is harder to get that abdominal wall to expand compared to when we're laying on our back. Which is part of the reason why working on our breath in a lot of different positions is going to be really, really important, because gravitational load changes the way our body functions, and so we need to work on how our body functions in different positions for that reason. After 5 to 6 breaths, we can let our arms drop off down to the side. And I want to take about, a few more breaths, more soothing breaths, but instead of just focusing on that abdominal wall, can we bring that breath up into our chest? Can we bring it up into our upper back? We can even add in light bowls of soup again. Breathing into the chest, spiraling out. Exhale, can you feel that stretch through the upper back? Nice little check-in of the body. And see how you're feeling.